How we doing? So I've gotten a lot of questions from my last video and on TikTok about where I invest, how I know what to invest in, and basically my Excel that I use to track my investments. So today I'm going to touch a little bit on each of those things, right? So I'll talk about where I invest, then we'll look at my current holdings, how the portfolio performed in August, first month of H2, and what I plan to invest in next, right, as the months go along, or basically how I invest, right? So, first of all, where I invest. I invest with Bamboo, right, and with Meristem, which I've mentioned, I think, pretty much every video. But you can get both of them on the App Store, right? And I'll just put a video of where you can get them, how you can get them, and my referral code as well. So, Meristem, Meritrade by Meristem, and Bamboo. So I think, yeah, that covers where I invest, right? So if you want, I'll probably say that Meritrade is more for if you've been investing for a while. And I would say that Bamboo is more for if you're new to the market and you're like just new to your investment journey, right? So the main difference for me is I have two different portfolios, right? But for the YouTube one, I use both. Next is how I invest, right? So to do that, let's run through the portfolio performance first, and then I will get into that. And that would also cover my Excel, right? So first of all, the Excel, the link to this Excel is now in the description of this video. So if you want to just click on that and you can get it. It's pretty much straightforward to use, and I have written everything that you might need, right, in order to use it properly. So first of all, let's see how we have done. So I did not add anything for BOA, as you already know. I added a little bit of Okomo, I added a little bit of Presco. My completion rate is 60 and 59 respectively. So why this is because at the beginning of the year, and this also answers how I invest, right, I have targets, right, and you can see them here. So my annual targets are what I used to actually invest, right? So my annual target for Como and Presco were 500 units each. So far, I am, here. For USCN, I have a target of 5,000 units. I added 900 in the last month. For Access Bank, similarly, I added a few units. My target is 10,000. I'm doing poorly in terms of completion on the banks, actually, which is very bad. So that's First Bank, Fidelity, GT, and Access on like the tier one banks, and Fidelity pushing into that tier one space also. So I added I added 2,000 units of GTCO, which was for the month. But the good news is, so I had been mentioning about insurance sector, right? I think it has finally remembered that is a stock. So just before the insurance bill was passed, right, which was after the last video I had made, I was able to double down and just close out my insurance targets for the year, right? And luckily, I woke up one day and found out they had passed the insurance, what do you call it? The new insurance sector bill, and the insurance sector went like boom, right? In fact, I think for like the first 3 days of that bill, you couldn't find insurance stocks. All you kept seeing was every day closes at like a crazy gain, right? So luckily for me, I had closed by then, so I was fine. I think Cornerstone, as at time of making this video, closed at 7 naira 18, but during that insurance rally, I think it got to about 8 naira 30. So good news on that one. This portfolio is also designed not for me to really sell, but more on that in a bit. My Guinea insurance gamble almost paid off. In fact, I'm up there. How much? I'm up like 15K, which is about 48%. But because I haven't hit my target for the year in terms of units, I have not sold anything at all, right? And again, how I invest, I have different rationales, right? So my BOA is a dividend stock, which I've mentioned. My Fidelity and most of my bank holdings are for dividends and capital appreciation, right? My Jaiz Bank, however, is for capital appreciation mostly because I believe the bank is undervalued, right? And I think in the future, they will grow. And I've seen that, right? My cost per unit is 2 naira 78. Jais closed at 4 naira 50, which is about 62% up. I still see a lot of upside in that stock, right? Market leader in the they've rebranded now as the financially inclusive bank, right? But it's basically like a Muslim halal bank, and I think as a market leader, that's already enough reason, right? I have my healthcare stock here, May Baker, which is capital appreciation focused, and I have an outstanding of 1,750 units left to buy this year, and my NACO and CWG. So I sold a bit of both my NACO and CWG last month because it was my birthday month, and this is a YouTube portfolio, and I needed to treat myself, right? And they were doing quite well. The two stocks were like significantly up. In fact, I believe my CWG, I am up, what is it now? I'm up about 41%, and my NACO, I'm up about 20%. It was a little bit more, but I just took my capital out and I enjoyed my birthday. You guys should do that. I mean, isn't that the whole point of investing? And finally, I have a new name here, which is tantalizers, right? So my rationale for tantalizers, you'll see here I have personal analysis. The reason for this is first of all, I bought 24,462 units of tantalizers for the long term. The reason for that is if you look at banks, right, they have what they call a non-performing loan, right? And you always have like a threshold that you can hit before people start to worry. So because of the success of this portfolio so far, I have decided to take a long-term bet on tantalizers, right? And I can afford to take the losses now because the rest of the portfolio is green. Okay, so I can afford to take the losses now, right? And my rationale for that is Tantalizers has been cutting down their losses year on year, right, for a while now. And I think there's potential there. The company is undergoing restructuring, right? So new strategy, new all that, and those things take time, right? But the most important thing for me is I've noticed that they've been clawing back losses, right? So hopefully they turn profit before the end of this year, right? And we'll see how the market reacts to that. But I have a target here. And this one, once I hit my units, I have an exit price. I won't tell you. But once I hit my exit price, I'm not greedy. I would, divest from the stock. But I can afford to buy a lot of it down now because I believe there's long-term potential in the stock. Right now, again, going into how I invest, okay, I'm going to use two case studies here, Aradel and Sterling, to I think maybe show you guys a little bit about how I make choices, right? So first of all, why Aradel and Sterling? Let's look here. My current portfolio, right? I am very much exposed to the banks. In fact, if you look at my weighted portfolio average from Access Holdings down to Guinea Insurance, right? The entire financial sector is about 50% of my portfolio, right? So I need to do a little bit of diversification because if something should happen in finance today, like maybe a new bill or something, it could easily just boom, right? So I need to be careful. That's one of the ways I invest, right? Another thing I always do before I add new names, I track what I call my cost to completion, right? And my cost to completion pretty much shows me how much I need to hit my targets, right? So let me even make this a bit clearer. So if you look at my completion rate here, it's not so bad, right? It's not so bad for most of the stocks. However, my current cost to completion is what helps me to actually invest. So before I add new names, I come here and I say, okay, if I had 20K today, which of this would I be able to close out? And then I add money. So for instance, if you were to give me 2 million naira today, which you can do if you keep liking and sharing and subscribing to this video, right? But sorry, to the channel. If I had 2 million naira, I'll put it into here and I'll clear out my GTCO for the year, or I could just divide it across all these and clear them out, right? So that is part of how I invest. Again, because I have what I call my targets, which I set for myself, it's easier for me to invest. So I ask a lot of people, like, what do you actually know? Like, how do you invest? How do you know what to invest in? And people say vibes. I mean, you need a direction, right? You need a strategy. So for me, I set out how many units I want to achieve in a year, and then I use that slowly based on my current cost to completion to close out what I need for the year. Okay. Now, finally, In terms of adding new names, so I'm already looking at two new names for next year, Aradel and Sterling. Now, for Aradel, the first thing I would say is before I finished this video, no, before I made this video, sorry, I noticed that Bamboo also just brought out something. So let's use that as the first basis, right? So in order to invest for me, I always start with the news, the market numbers, and then personal analysis, right? So the news for starters, Bamboo has this thing called the Big Buy, investing in the NGX for the rest of 2025, right? I think you can download this from the company's website or something, and then it shows you basically an overview of how the market has performed so far. So you can see here, consumer goods up 52%, oil and gas sector down 10%, right? So now for me, that is a long-term buyer. This is a reason to look at that sector, right? Because most of Nigeria's revenue comes from oil and gas anyway. Although it's what was susceptible to global changes in price and whatever, it's still Nigeria's strongest revenue sector, at least for now. So that's a reason to look at that sector for me, right? Similarly, Bamboo keeps going and they talk about, like banks and all the indexes and, all that stuff. But if you look here, for instance, the healthcare sector outlook that they have said that Nemeth did year on year 86%. May Baker, which is in our portfolio, did 48% year on year. Another thing to note here, you can't always get it right. I always see people that would say, oh, if you had invested 10K in this stock last year, you'll be up 10 million. Big man, I didn't have the 10K last year. I don't have it this year, right? So I have a strategy I'm following, right? And everybody should have that. It varies person to person, but always have that. Because you could come here and say, oh, but Isaac, you missed Nemeth. I have May Baker. It's fine. Like, it's part of my own strategy, right? And similarly, they show you the insurance outlook and blah, 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 blah. But if you look at the energy sector outlook, this is interesting for me. Oil and gas is down. 12.5% has been divested. You guys know the whole Exxon and Shell, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? So H2 playbook that they have, their outlook, they are looking at, look at one stock that is here, Aradel. Who would have thought? Right? Aradel is right here as part of the things that they're looking at. And there, for me, as a dividend investor, I'm interested in the dividends. And Aradel's dividend yield is 6%. Okay? And Sterling's bank is 2%, which for me is fine because I already have exposure to GT and the like. So that's fine, right? I can use this as a reason to, you write it down. Dividend yield, is it where I want? Okay, good. That's one reason. So yeah, Bamboo has this because you have to actually do your research. Okay, that's the first part. The second part is for people who might be thinking, okay, that's a bit confusing. Meristem also has something here, which I'll show you. Meristem also has theirs, which is here. So they send these out weekly where they talk about the markets, they talk about whatever. So look here, top traded by value, Aradel, which means there's something people might be seeing in there, right? And another thing, if you keep scrolling on this is only about 10 pages, right? They show you something, stocks you should have in your portfolio, Fidelity, Presco, GT. Who would have thought? Then, you keep going. Similarly, you see here tickers that have moved from buy to sell. Cornerstone is there. But for me, I'm not panicking because, again, long term, right? So I don't have to sell. And what I really want to show here is this. So here, Meristem has their outlook for the rest of the year, right? And their half-year strategic portfolio, you can see that they also have Aradel in their holdings, right? And their own portfolio has returned 33.74 year to date. Mine has returned, 1 second, 48%, although it's not year to date, but you get the drift, right? So they also have Aradel here, and they do not have Sterling Bank. Interesting. So that could be another reason for you if you're like a buy or sell person, right? Depending on what you want to do. But you can see here the dividend yield again 6%. Their portfolio weight has 9% in Aradel, which means they believe a bit in that stock, right? And also because of the price of the stock and all that stuff. Again, if this is still not interesting to you, another thing I always look at the news. You can always go to, because of the two companies we're looking at again, which are Aradel and Sterling. if you go to Nairametrics, the news, they would always tell you something. So real quick, Sterling Holdco delivers 157% profit growth in half year. So that means half year of last year versus half year of this year, they've added 157% in profit. That for me is another buy reason, right? So if you look through all this and you just read and read and read and read, you see some interesting things here. Gross earnings have climbed 39%, and that is good news. Non-interest income increased 45%, so the bank is doing a little bit more than just normal banking and stuff. One reason why I personally have Sterling as part of the banks I want to buy is because of this, right? So Sterling is investing in renewable energy, healthcare, and community development. I think they have a name for it. Is it CREAM or something? I can't remember. They also have all these things where they are doing like electric cars charging stations and workplace, what do you call those things? Co-working spaces and all that, right? So all those things for me remind me of GT when they started doing fashion week and food and all those things that endeared them to people, right? So part of those things are why I want to also buy Sterling, right? Again, how does Isaac invest? These are the little things I look at. Similarly for Aradel, you look at 5.3 billion. Oh, sorry. According to Nairametrics, they also, I didn't even know they've coined a new term called stocks worth over 1 trillion naira. Anyway, Aradel is there and it has gained. So, this is news again. You can look into this article and say, okay, what am I saying that I might not have seen before? But you can also come to this website, which I personally use, africanfinancials.com, and you can do your readings and studying here as well, right? So the first thing I want to show here is look at the price table. We started as a January. Sterling Bank was 5 naira 65, and today we are at 7 naira 50, right? So the whole market momentum, well, it's been good so far. It's been good so far. The price is going. People are saying something. Again, this is one of those cases where somebody can say, oh, if you had invested here, you'll be worth or blah, blah, blah. That's not for me. I know that I'm sitting in for the long term. So anytime I enter, I'm sitting for the long term, right? This shows you, if you on this same African financials, you can also look at an analysis of their numbers so far. So changes in financial position and all these kind of things. Again, you actually have to know what you're looking for to an extent. So if you come and read these things, they simplify it, right, as much as they can. So let's take here. So group achieved a profit of 41 billion naira compared to 16 billion naira. So year on year, you see that their profit has gone from 16 billion to 41 billion for half year, right? So that's January to June. Again, another good reason to buy. If you look at Aradel, similarly, when they IPO'd, it was 800, now it's 511, but they've acquired more assets between then and now. So what are we looking at that can happen, right? Aradel started the year at 598, it's down to 511. Okay, is this a good time to buy for me? Yes, because I'm thinking long term. Their profit, how has their profit done? So you can see here, now this is a fantastic thing. The Aradel Holdings achieved a revenue of 368 billion compared to 268 billion in the same period last year. So that's 100 billion naira increase in what's it called, revenue, right? How does that translate to profit? Let's see. Operating profit saw substantial growth, rising to 118 billion from 150, right? So a growth of 38 billion there. Is that good? Is that bad? Contextual. You look at it. What are your goals? And then, you take a position. For me, I plan to add these two to my portfolio. If not this year, maybe next year, if I'm able, as I mentioned, to complete my goals for the year, right? And I've shown that in my Excel. So my goals, all these units, I have an outstanding of 3.5 million before I can add new names, right, on this YouTube portfolio. So let's see how that goes. And then finally, if all of this, if all of this is still for you, like, yeah, this is a lot of information, I cannot be bothered, I just want to find where to put my money that at least I know some people are saying, and I'm safe, I use investing.com as well, right? And what I do is I come here, I look for the stock. So let's use Aradel. I go to the technical analysis and I look at what other traders are saying, right? And monthly, I can see here is a buy, buy, buy. Okay. So what that essentially tells me is people that are much smarter than me who spend their lives researching and looking at data want to buy. They say it's a buy. So that's enough reason, right? Again, do your own research, as everybody in finance will tell you, and look at how your goals also, tie into what you want to buy. Similarly, if you come for sterling again, you can see a monthly recommendation of strong buy, technical indicators, moving averages as well, strong buy, summary, strong buy. Another reason why I will probably buy, right, after I've met my goals of the ones I already had for the year. Similarly, on investing.com, you can just go to general, and it can also show you financials as well. I personally prefer African financials for my financials. I think they do a better job breaking it down. Again, I'll link all this along with my Excel in the description of this video. And yeah, African financials for your financials. You can also get your financials on investing. But the point is, right? I say all this to say, if you want to know where to invest, you have it right here. If you want to know how to invest, you have it right here. If you want to know how I invest, I've shown a little bit of it here. If you want to also track your investments the way I do, there's a link to my Excel in here as well. And I think this is a good place to start. So real quick, just before we end the video, let's just run through again. My total purchase cost is 1.9. My current value is 2.9. I am up 937 on this YouTube portfolio, which is 48% since I've been buying. Here I track my highest return. So I can see here that my biggest gainer is Cornerstone, which is at 400,000, and my loss is currently Tantalizers, which I've explained using my own rationale, is because I'm buying down for the long term to exit at a later price when the company starts to return that. Okay, so I think this is a good starter for your investment journey. So if you want to know where to, how to, and why, you can share this video with your friends who are just starting investments, or share it with people who are already investing. Maybe they might find something new in here that they might use for the long term as well. And most importantly, leave a like and share this video and subscribe to the channel, okay? So that maybe YouTube will say that, oh, this guy is actually doing something good that people are saying, and then we can actually use YouTube money to build a YouTube portfolio, right? So see you guys in the next one.